Hello, I'm Cameron Sabat, and welcome to Cutting to the Case. Today I'm honored to welcome David S. Chernow. Under his leadership as president and CEO of Select Medical for nearly a decade, the company became one of the nation's largest providers of post-acute care, with a nationwide network of critical illness recovery hospitals, inpatient rehab hospitals, outpatient rehabilitation centers, and occupational health clinics, serving more than 1 million patients each year. Before joining Select Medical, Mr. Chernow served as president and CEO of OnCure Medical, one of the country's largest radiation oncology providers. Earlier in his career, he co-founded American Oncology Resources, helping build one of the nation's leading oncology practice management organizations, and later served as president and CEO of JA Worldwide, one of the world's largest nonprofit organizations focused on entrepreneurship and financial education. Across healthcare, business, and education, Mr. Chernow has spent decades leading organizations through periods of extraordinary growth, transformation, and uncertainty, with a leadership philosophy shaped not only by success, but by adversity and failure, as we will discuss in this podcast. Mr. Chernow, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on Cutting to the Case.
Thank you. I'm wondering, do I call you doctor yet, or or do I just call you Cameron?
In
Sorry.
10 months, but
Okay.
still
Okay.
I'm Cameron until then.
Okay. By the way, congratulations on your medical training at Georgetown. I'm a
Thank
huge
you.
fan of Georgetown. Love Georgetown. Um, so, Cameron, let me start by saying, first of all, it's an honor and a privilege to be part of this. As you and I chatted before, it's always a great opportunity to talk to young people who are looking at their future, and want to be inspired and motivated going forward and do something meaningful in their lives. And I'm glad to share a lot of my background with you, but I think what may be helpful is maybe give you a little bit more background to where I sort of started. And I like to joke around, but I've had the benefit of having basically four careers. And if you think about it, a lot of young people may know what they want to do when they're younger, but not everybody is fortunate enough to find their passion and their purpose in their first job. And it's building skills, it's having experiences, it's having successes and failures, and maybe some adversity along the way that actually helps define who you are as a person. And I'm not sure if you know all of this, but when I was your age, I think 23 or 24, I'm not going to ask you your age, but I had just finished going through college and then going through law school, and was about to, ironically, I applied to Georgetown to get a master's in tax law. Uh, um, you're going to say, why would you do such a thing? First of all, Georgetown had one of the great programs in America. I applied to NYU, got rejected, got waitlisted at Georgetown, and then got accepted at the University of Denver, which provided a master's into. I wanted to be a sports agent. That's what I wanted to do. I was a tennis player growing up, played in college. And ironically, I didn't get accepted. And then but before I moved on to go to Denver to get the master's in tax, I actually had a setback physically where I got diagnosed with cancer. I can get into the detail, but it sort of inspired me. And so I had testicular cancer with pulmonary mets. So you being a medical student, you'd appreciate it. Had not the greatest experience in when going through this. It was before, to share a quick story, it was before they had antiemetics or Zofran. So you'd get chemotherapy, you would not want to, it's the kind of stuff you wouldn't want to do. But I only share that to tell that story, to say it defined who I became as a person going through all that. And it made you realize, as a parent, you never want your children to go through adversity. You want to help them through it. But it helped to find and gave me the two greatest gifts I ever had in my life, which were perspective on things and an appreciation for things that I never would have had I not gone through it. I then moved to Denver, Colorado. I ended up becoming dear, dear friends with my oncologist, and that started the ball rolling. And ironically, as fate would have it, I ended up starting a company called American Oncology Resources with my oncologist that later became U.S. Oncology, the largest oncology network in the country.
Hmm.
Didn't really know what I was doing, but it was fate had it. Fate was in front of us. So I had the law background. By the way, I never finished the Master's in Law tax law program. Um, I then, for 10 years, was at U.S. Oncology, ending as the president. And then I got the good fortune of when someone said, "Hey, would you like to go educate and inspire young people to be successful in life through free enterprise education?" Not really, no, having gone through a free enterprise exercise with U.S. Oncology, I said, wouldn't that be the greatest thing in the world to educate and inspire young people to be successful? Teach them
Wow.
financial literacy, teach them about workforce readiness. And these
Yeah.
were kids K through 12, just to
Hmm.
give you the history.
Hmm.
And I was the head for the US for 3 years, and then I got the opportunity to be the global head. And I was traveling literally in four corners of the world. We were in 132 countries.
Wow.
I went to Egypt, I went to Latin America, I went to Japan, and all we were trying to do was light a fire for young people to find their passion and their purpose.
Wow.
And a lot of these young kids had great adversity in their lives, and they needed a spark. And
Hmm.
it taught me the importance of entrepreneurship because it didn't matter how much money you had, but if you had a great idea and you had passion around it, maybe something great could happen.
Hmm.
So I did that for 6 years. And then I got the great fortune. Well, then ironically, I got pursued by a private equity firm to be on a board that I later became the CEO of the company. So I left Junior Achievement and JA Worldwide, and I started running OnCure to go back through my history. And so I got the good fortune of running a radiation oncology company, really a wonderful company. And then, ironically, 2010 happened. You're, I don't even remember. Well, you were born, but that
Who
was a
was?
really tough time in this country. Very
Yeah.
tough time in this country where you couldn't. That's when the savings and loan and a lot of bad stuff was happening. You couldn't borrow money, and then I moved on. I was actually trying to start another company, but I got the good fortune of being asked to come aboard after spending close to 6 years, no, maybe more, with Select Medical. They asked me if I wanted to be part of the family and part of the management team. Greatest decision I ever made by far, because I got to work with not only people who were mentors of me, but my best friend in the whole world, who was the founder um, and now the executive chairman, Bob Ortenzio. We had an amazing board with two ex-heads of Medicare, one ex-senator, Senator Frist, who is a marvelous individual. And so for the last 16 years, I've been at Select Medical. The last around 12 years, I was the CEO, president CEO, and most recently, I got the great honor of becoming mentoring somebody and working with others and handing the reins over to a young, uh, energetic, great leader. And then I'm now the vice chairman of Select Medical. So, but you asked me the one question, if I could answer it, is, we learn a lot from our successes, but we learn twice as much from our failures. And without being really too much of a jokester here, I've had a lot of failures, but those failures have made me um, so much better of a leader and a person. And honestly, we learn so much more, and it has such a greater impact, the failures, than successes. Success. What is the line? Success. Failure is an orphan. Success has 1,000 fathers.
Oh,
And
interesting. Wow.
um, think about that for a minute. When you fail, nobody's around you. When
Yeah.
you're successful, there's a lot of people involved. And the truth of the matter is I've learned a lot about leadership, a lot about being a good leader and a good person through those failures. And I joke about it, and I just love the fact that you have a choice of looking how failure or success can impact you. And for me, it's always been about, and for young people, think about it. We all, we don't pass a test, or we don't get into a school, or we don't get the job we wanted, or we don't make as much money as we think. But those are stepping stones to greater success. Every one of those. Because if you look at it that way, that, okay, maybe I didn't get this, but I got something else.
Hmm.
I'm one of those guys that fate has, I've been very fortunate because every failure has turned into a success. And I'll tell you one quick story if it's okay.
Yeah.
I was about to start a brand new company, and we were 3 days away from signing the final doc. 3 days away after working a year on the deal, everybody had signed off on it. It was 2010. It was a really bad time for the market, and we had completed the deal. Everybody had signed, and I got a call literally 2 days before we were going to finally close after the 1 year, and they said we just can't come up with the money. They came up with some other excuse, but they said we just can't come up with the money. And it was going to be a brand new venture. I had negotiated a deal to work in healthcare with another enormous group, similar to what we had done at US Oncology and some other opportunities. And when I got that call, it was an interesting time because I didn't joke about it, but I was like, you got to be kidding me. Working a year, why? And I was with my best friend, and he turned to me and he put his arm on my shoulder and he said, sometimes one door closes and another door opens. And I said, what does that mean? And he goes, well, you've been trying to help me find some good leaders for our company as a board member. What about you? What about you?
Hmm.
And I said, what do you mean, what about me? And he goes, what about you? And I said, oh my God, I live halfway across the country. And at the end of the day, I sat down with my wife and I said, we have this opportunity that's just been presented that I had no idea about. That was 16 years ago. And I
Hmm.
took the job that became the greatest job I've ever had in my entire life, and sort of helped define who I was and made me a better leader and made me a better person. So that's what I'm saying when I say to you that adversity or failure can actually be a propeller for us, a prompter, a catalyst to do something great in your life.
Hmm.
So whenever there's a setback, hopefully we have the opportunity. It's an art form to be able to take that and make it lemonade, if you will. Take the lemons, make it lemonade, because it may be meaningful, not to get too deep about it. But that's been sort of the story of my career,
Hmm.
honestly. And by the way, I forgot to tell you, I was in the real estate business. Did that for about 8 years, but it allowed me to have the experience to build freestanding cancer centers around the country that became the basis and one of the foundations of our company. Who would have known that I'll joke a little bit, that having a great understanding of real estate would actually prompt something so wonderful. When I told you I wanted to be a sports agent, ironically, it's working with high potential people and highly influential people and highly successful people. You know what that did for me? And I failed, by the way. I never made it, but it gave me the interest of working with really smart people and high performing people. And guess who that was? It was oncologists in this country. And I
Yeah.
and it gave me the basis on which I was able to work with them, because I knew I could work with, because I had a passion towards working with high performing, highly successful people. And those are oncologists, who are
Mhm.
some of the greatest people in this country. You
Mhm.
know, great emotional intelligence, great brilliance, like you, went through medical school, toiled, learned a lot. And we were able to create a great company with people because I wanted to work with high performing people.
Hmm.
It wasn't the exact road we always had, but it was the great road that we took that built a foundation by which you can become a better leader and more successful in what you do. And that's the beauty of a lot of friends of mine, and you've had other interviews with other really good leaders. There's nothing more enriching and intoxicating than working with people in your organization and seeing them succeed and being a great servant leader,
Hmm.
supporting them, mentoring them, because their success becomes your success.
Hmm.
I'll
Yeah.
stop there. I've gone on too much, but I'll stop there.
No, I very much I very much appreciate all of the incredible perspectives on leadership and adversity as a propellant, and well, all of these kind of very helpful philosophies, especially for someone early on in their career. And I'm curious, bringing this to an audience of primarily students, who many of them don't have, high profile connections or are continuously in touch with high performing athletes or oncologists. They're just students. What would you say if I dropped you into a brand new healthcare startup tomorrow with no
Yeah.
reputation and no capital? Where would you start?
It's a great question, and it's amazing because we're starting a new company too. I'm the vice chair of Select, but I'm that guy. We're starting a new company with a new vision and a new idea that I can talk about. But more importantly, it's all about building a team of people. And I can tell you that while resumes are great and experiences are great and can be really helpful in one's career, having the right attitude on serving others, just like a physician or a nurse or a physical therapist, serving others and being having empathy and compassion and having great values, integrity.
Mhm.
Um, that's the key to building great companies and identifying those kind of people who not only have the experience but the right attitude. And I'm going to share a quick story,
Mhm.
and it's sort of a crazy little story. One day I was driving into a car wash, and I was driving a nice car, and I was wearing a tank top and a backwards hat and shorts. And a young man who was working at the car wash came up to me. He had a little bit of a ponytail, and I could tell he was very inquisitive. And he comes to me, and it was a very nice car. And he says, "Hey, sir, can you tell me what does it take to be successful?" I was thinking, why is he asking me this question? I'm in my backwards hat, tank top. Oh, it's because I'm driving a nice car. He didn't know I could have, not that I was stolen the car, but I could have just been taking it out to get it washed. Anyway, I turned to him and I thought it was a great question. It goes to your question.
Yeah.
And I said, if there's two things that would make you successful in life, I believe. And this wasn't this long ago, by the way. So it's sort of silly, an older guy wearing a backwards hat. But anyway, it was sort of a great question. I said, always be the one that everybody wants on the team. Think about that.
Mhm.
If everybody wants you on their team, that means you got something.
Mhm.
And then always be the one who does more than is asked of them.
Mhm.
If you always do more than is asked of you, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care what your station in life is, your economics, but do more than is asked of you. And be the one, when they get to pick, be the one that they choose. Those are the people you want on your team. One with great experience, one who's a great team player, one who's got a great attitude, and one who's always willing to do more than is asked of you. You do those things, and you're going to have a great company. Now it's a question of, can you identify those people? Can you really identify those people who really have that that zest, that energy, that passion, that purpose? That's what makes for great companies. As leaders of companies, and I've been part of a lot of them, you look at their resume, they're perfect. They don't always pan out. And I have another quick thing I'll just say, and I think it was the Jack Welch. This is no original thought. There's if you take a quadrant and you have four quadrants, it's easy to make the decision on the person who's got great attitude and great performance, right?
Mm.
Upper right-hand quadrant, all day long, you love those people. It's also easy to take the ones who don't perform and don't have the good values. And it's more values than performance that I would argue. It's the two on the left, the upper left one who's got great performance, but the values aren't that great, right? That's actually lower left-hand quadrant. Great performance, but the values, they're not getting along well with others, right? It's disruptive.
Mhm.
It's the hard one that's got great values and may not be performing today. So if there's a tale to be told, there are going to be a lot of people who may not perform initially, but have great values, great integrity, great energy, great work ethic, team player. Don't get discouraged. Sometimes it's not your fault. Be the one in that upper left hand quadrant that people are going to give you a shot, and they're going to want to work with you, and they're going to want to mentor you because you got the great values. You can't fake sincerity, you can't fake values. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the most rewarding part of my job and my career, is finding great people and helping them and mentoring them and supporting and being a servant leader to them.
Mm.
Because it's a bit selfish if you worked with me, Cameron, and you were enormously successful, you made the company successful. And it's not about me, it's about the company. And that's what a young person should strive for.
Mm.
Be that person who's got great values, who can get mentored. And by the way, JA, best mentoring volunteer organization in the world. So I learned about the importance of mentoring and being a volunteer and giving back
Yeah.
through that experience. Again, you would think, okay, wait a minute. You worked in a not-for-profit 6 years. What benefit? The greatest thing I learned was the power of mentoring
Mhm.
and how powerful it was for young people and how inspiring it was for young people.
Mhm.
And being able to do that, you build communities, by the way, by mentoring young people who become enormously successful, and then they give back, and that it has a multiplier effect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Absolutely. And you take all of these experiences, and as you kind of move through your career, then you bring a wake of people following you, and who become extraordinarily talented because of your mentorship. And it's just an incredible kind of compounding snowball effect.
Yeah,
It's really fascinating. And you were mentioning the the kind of the quadrants and the brilliance versus the lack of integrity, or of just the approach that people take. Healthcare is full of brilliant physicians who become executives, and a lot of these physicians are very talented, but obviously most of them don't end up in the top positions. Why do some make that transition exceptionally well while others struggle, knowing that a lot of them do have that inner motive, and that's what drew them to medicine in the first place?
are you asking? Let me just define it a little more. Are
Sure.
you asking why certain physicians become great leaders and others do not?
I'm asking, I guess.
Because I don't want to answer that question. I mean, I want to answer the right
Yeah.
question.
Medical school teaches a lot of the core aspects of leadership,
Yeah,
how to, give orders to a nurse and how to
yeah,
command the room in different surgical scenarios. And so physicians are trained leaders. And a
yeah,
lot of the motives for them entering medicine were, in essence, altruistic. So they check off those boxes that you're looking for in
yeah,
future leaders. What's what are the people who go beyond?
yeah.
Every doctor's taken the extra step, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. First of all, I'll just say this. This is what I was telling you early on. Um, I wanted to be a doctor. My dad wanted to be a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor. My whole career, adult career, has been working with physicians. I absolutely have the utmost respect for physicians because it's a long road, as you know. And not only that, I'm a huge advocate of clinicians. In particular, when I went through my cancer treatment, I became extremely close to my nurses, not necessarily not always my doctors. and have the utmost respect. And as you know, you take the Hippocratic Oath. To your point, you learn what it takes to be a good leader, to become a great caregiver. But not everybody is wired to necessarily be a leader of people. And there's a lot of physicians who are much better being independent than being part of a team.
Hmm.
And that's just life, right? I mean, in work too, forget about physicians. There are people who are better part of the workforce than being the leader of the workforce. Because it does take a special skill. You need to have to want to work with everybody, and to managing people is the hardest job in America, in all of the world, if you will. Is how do we manage, motivate, inspire people to be the best that they can be? So what I've seen, and answer directly to your question, is that some who really do aspire to be more than just their own independent success, and they want to help others, and they want to mentor, and they want to be a servant leader. It's really hard because the physician job is very demanding. It takes a lot of work, just individually, and to be able to go beyond that and to help others. I think there are some who are wired to be that way, but there are some who don't. And I think it takes a lot of humility to be a leader. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of empathy and compassion. To be a great leader, you got to be authentic and sincere. Not even some of the great leaders, they had to work really, really hard at changing who they were to become great.
Yeah.
And and it's a dual job to be a physician and a leader, in my mind. A lot of people ask if I'm a physician, and I said no. I just I stay at the Holiday Inn and I work with a lot of physicians. But you really get to understand some of these physicians, and getting people. I think leadership in many ways is getting people to do what you want them to do, but make it be their idea, as opposed to forcing them to. It's almost like being a parent. You want them to get to the idea you want it to be, but you want it to be their idea, and you want to sort of cajole them and move them in the right direction. So I think it's a really hard job to be a great physician and a great physician and a great leader. But there are a lot of them, some amazing ones in this country, who've taken companies, private companies, made them public companies, and been able to do that. So in one of the companies we started in 2017 it became One Oncology, and Senator Frist was on that board. And it was interesting because he's not only a great physician, but he's a great leader, not only of people but in the country. I mean, think about that layer of leadership. And he said, he was really excited to be part of this because he really believed in physician leadership.
Mhm.
It's something that he really wanted to, because if you think about it, if you have great physician leadership in a community, it could it can have an exponential effect upon the health and the well-being of a community. If
Yeah.
you have a physician leader driving that, not just a leader, but a physician leader, the compelling impact that one can have is amazing.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Yeah.
hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah, and you've touched on some very interesting points. Most notably, you mentioned that leadership is something that's not inherent to what everyone wants to do, or there are things on other people's plates, for instance, families and other things. And being a doctor is already enough for a lot of people. And, taking that extra step as a leader requires the ability to talk and the interest to talk to as many people as possible. And it's such a difficult job. And, expounding on this, who was the toughest person? You don't have to name names here, but
Yeah.
who was the toughest person you ever had to lead, and what did they teach you?
Um, I think. Well, let me go back on this a little bit because I want to
Yeah.
think about it. But um, I will tell you that I've in each one of the jobs that I've had in my career, I've had very difficult people to deal with. And when I say difficult, that may in a way, have been disrespectful, um, did not treat others well, didn't have the values that I grew up with. My father was a lawyer and general counsel, and he had a moral code. Treat others as they would want to be treated, and be respectful and integrity and all those kind of. And I grew up that way. And when you see people who aren't necessarily having those values or those virtues being exhibited, you have to know how you can handle them. And um, the law, which I studied as well, also gives you a little bit of empathy to allow you to try to understand why people would treat you in such a way. And honestly, it's more upbringing, but the beauty of it is you tried to understand where people were coming from. There were different views, and you weren't hardened. Um, Not to get into too much familial discussion, but my mother-in-law once told me, and I joke about it even at our company, that she told me the three C's that are the importance of great marriages and partnerships. And we're a partnering organization. And I'll come back to your question with this. She said, if you had the three C's in your life and you live by them, you will never have an argument. You will be able to get along with everybody. And those three C's are compassion, communication, and a willingness to compromise. And if you have that as an attitude and you deal with really difficult people, so if you communicate with them, if you have a bit of compassion, you try and understand them, and you're willing to not necessarily compromise your principles, but be compromising in how you look at things, you'll normally get along. You won't necessarily agree, but you can get along. And in my career, I've had a lot of people that I've gotten along with that I just necessarily agree with. And I think I was served well by my mother-in-laws who would have known that my mother-in-law was giving me some of the greatest advice I could ever have, right? Which is how to get along with people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's being a good leader too. But also having having tolerance, but also having enough gumption and grit to be able to know when the people you're not getting along with, are adversely affecting others, aren't necessarily don't need to be part of the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it's that you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
yeah.
Fascinating. So, yeah. And all of this comes back to you must have so much confidence when you approach these decisions because a lot of times in these boardrooms, there might be competing interests. And even though you're trying to reach across the aisle, sometimes some of these questions need an answer. And it's black or white, one or the other. And I was wondering, can you maybe share a decision with our audience that kept you awake at night?
Hmm. Yeah, I can, and I would just say this is the ability to I've learned a lot of things. One of my favorite phrases, again, my best friend always says it. He says, "Mean what you say what you mean, but just don't be mean when you say it." And you don't have to be rude, or you can disagree. And there are countless times, hundreds, where you don't necessarily agree. But a good leader, especially of an organization, I believe, will need to take in all the information and go with whether they feel so strongly they have to push it and move in that direction and get others to follow, or if they can't and it's a bit of a compromise, go there and feel good about it and have conviction with it, even if you have some doubts, right? You got to go with the team, and you can't be, great companies are not. There's great leaders who drive a lot of decision making, but it's the really, really great companies who you get everybody behind it, because you can't. This is always one of the great challenges: is that how do you scale, grow a company it can't be just one person's idea. It takes a team to really drive that. So you asked me the question though, which was, is there a time when you were in a situation where it was really bad, right? It was adverse. And go back. It was the question is how did you handle it, or what was
Well,
the?
just can you share a decision that kept you up at night that you had
Oh,
to
okay.
make?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry. You brought me back. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always the people. What keeps you up at night is the people and what they do or what they don't do, and whether or not, based on what they did not do or did do, um, should they remain within the organization. Those are the toughest decisions. And what I mean by that is everybody makes a mistake, but do they make a second mistake? And how many times will you allow them to make a mistake? And then you have to make a tough judgment call on people that could ruin their careers. You always have to remember that. And that keeps you up at night. Did I do the right thing? The good news is, I've been around a lot of great people, great leaders who don't put you in an awkward spot financially or do something from an irregularity. It's more about the people. People drive, the greatest asset, the greatest resource is your human resource. What makes a company great is its people. Yeah, you have a great product, but it's the people. And my whole career has been service industry, real estate services, education services, legal services, healthcare services. It's all about the people.
Hmm.
So there's been, and I can tell you, it's even most recent. I've been up at night, waking up at night, worrying, did I make the right decision about people? And you care for the people, but sometimes they're just not a good fit. Sometimes they just, it's those two things. Does everybody want to work with them? Do they do more than is asked of them? Do they live their values? And if they don't, you got to make the tough call.
Mhm.
And when you have compassion and empathy, there's almost a conflict because you want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
Judgment calls, those are the ones on people.
Yeah.
So, can I tell you one other quick story? Or
Please.
maybe you had another question.
Yeah. No, no. This is just a conversational thing. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
my questions are just to spark discussion. No. So,
Okay. Well, I
yeah.
think you're going to like it. And I don't know if I have it here. I got to find it. Um, Maybe I'll get it for you in a second. Um, I was telling you about the experience I had when I was your age. I was 23 years old and I was going through cancer treatment, getting chemotherapy. I
Mhm.
had surgeries, didn't go well. Actually, improper surgeries, improper diagnosis, those kind of
Ah,
things. I'm not here. That was 45 years ago. So I am a very lucky guy. I'm sitting here today to be able to tell the story. But this is for young people. It was really terrible. I was 60 days in the hospital, and this isn't feel sorry for me moment. It's not. It's actually was the greatest thing in the world that ever happened to me. And they had to go back in and do the surgery. They nicked the cistern Kylie. I know you're gonna love all this stuff. They had Kylie societies. They had to go back in for the medical students who like this kind of stuff. It was when I had to go under hyperalimentation. I couldn't eat by mouth because I had this whole thing with the lymphatic system. And they told me I had to stay in bed for a period of time because it was so delicate, the surgery, to go back in. I was in bed for 20 days.
mm,
You couldn't move. And imagine this as a young person. They had no cable television. There was no ESPN. And I joke about it. All I can think about how it was great was I was watching soap operas because it gave you a raison d'etre, a reason for being. Every day there was something new. And I couldn't eat and I couldn't watch sports. I mean, what else was there in life than sports and eating? But anyway,
yeah.
so 20 days later, I get a call that, hey, you can get out of bed, you can start walking. And I loved music. And I have a prop. I didn't even know I had it here, but I had a prop. Let me just get it.
Yeah, please.
The prop is this. It was a
Oh,
Sony Walkman.
fascinating.
Sony Walkman.
Yeah.
You're too
Oh,
young for this, but the Sony Walkman, you put it on and you listen to music. And I'm in my hospital gown. And by the way, I'm under hyperalimentation, so I'm tied to an IV pole that they're feeding me with, right? And I got to go outside and I got to walk around in the courtyard. I'm not sure if my hospital gown was tied in the back or not. Not important, but just a small comment. And I'm lost in my own world.
yeah.
It was the greatest day of my life,
Hmm.
no doubt. Greatest day. And it was all that adversity. And I realized that that moment was juxtaposition of being bedridden for 20 days, going through cancer treatment, doing all these things. And yet it was the happiest day of my life. And that's when I told you I gained perspective and appreciation all in one fell swoop. And
Hmm.
I'm literally jamming to the music of the time. And I thought about that we all have a choice on how we deal. We all do. We all have setbacks. We all have failures. And there's an art to taking the negativity, the failures, the adversity, and turning it around and making it be something that's
Wow. That's beautiful.
powerful and enriching for
Yeah.
you. That, by the way, and I can tell you this honestly, after going through that, I know I can do anything.
Yeah.
I may not do it well, but I can, and because I have perspective on are these other things that big of a deal? And ironically, I was telling this story to a guy who's a really prominent guy who wrote a best-selling book and it goes on and tours, and he's this amazing, inspirational guy. And I was just telling him a little bit of this. Oh, you got to write a book about this. You got to write a book. I'm like, who's going to read the book? You're an amazing guy. Nobody's going to care. But I said I would love to, and this gets back to your point. I would love to run a podcast someday from my experience on the COVID that talks about the art of taking a negative and failure and making it into a positive, and how everybody in their life, if they're honest about it, have dealt with failure. And there are so many successful people who've found their joy and happiness in their job and in their life because they have perspective that failure can be a good thing, that adversity can be great. So I'll end this by telling you what I wanted to, I told my friend who wrote this best-selling book, I know what the name of the book's going to be. And he goes, well, what do you mean? You know, you're not going to write a book, but you know the name. I said, I also know the name of the podcast. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, if I ever do something, I got too many things going on, but if I ever do something, there's an art, and you got to take the juxtaposition of a bad thing and a good thing. And maybe it doesn't seem or become apparent to you at the time, but it will over time. So the name of the book, Cameron, was going to be The Art. Now you got to think about it. What was I dancing to and holding on to?
The art of music.
Well, it's music, but I was hanging on to my IV pole with my Sony Walkman, and I called it The Art of Pole Dancing.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
I have the name, and I even have it trademarked
That's
someday.
fascinating. Wow. Oh
I'm
my
not sure
goodness.
anybody's going to like that, but
No,
anyway.
no. No, that's very memorable. I think the best things are memorable like that.
Okay.
You
Anyway,
know what's fascinating about that? One of my best friends, family friend, Andre, he was at VCU Orthopedics, and he he basically had to he got kidney stones. He was operating for so long that he was in the ED of his own hospital. And
wow.
he um got kidney stones, and he was in excruciating pain. He still had to go as an orthopedics resident and go and round on patients in the ED. And so he was holding his IV pole and going around and I think there's something kind of um sad and beautiful about kind of the lowest point that a human can be, holding that IV pole and still holding hope too, and pushing forward and doing what they have to do to get
He
forward.
he can relate. I'm telling
Yeah,
you, he could totally. Hang on one second. Can you give me 1 second?
sure, sure.
Thank you. Just 1 second. You have to have joy and humor in your life. Okay, so here you are. Got it?
Oh my goodness. You you built it. You actually built the hat. Wow.
I
Okay.
did. I did. I did. I built the logo, and someday I want to tap into, and that's the art of pole dancing. Tap into the power of failure and adversity, and how it could really motivate and inspire you to be something that you've always wanted to be,
How
if you
long
look
have
at
you
it the
been,
right way.
yeah, how long have you been kind of entertaining this? I mean, have you
Oh,
been,
I've long time. I've
wow.
given speeches on. I say speech. People have asked me to talk about quality and the importance of healthcare, but the importance of having the right attitude. In all honesty, having a good attitude and wanting to work with others and wanting to help others and be a good I've learned to be a good servant leader. Hopefully, I've learned to do that. But it's all been about my bad experience, and I can always relate back to it, and it's made me better. It's made me, but not everybody has and I had a loving father who, not everybody has the support system that allows you to transcend all the negativity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about students, so I've always wanted to educate young people. I wanted to, from my junior achievement days, I'd love to go someday if I had the time to help people in college or in business school really create not only great experiences but great attitudes that will make them successful. When I say create, help them understand how that's so beneficial to them in their career.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
yeah,
And so for people looking for, as you mentioned, that reason to live, that reason to go
yeah.
forward. Um, I remember, I think Ken Griffin of Citadel once said, in the darkest times, you just got to take one step in front of the other, even if you're in hell. But if you can't even do that, how do you just how do you push forward? I mean, what is the equivalent of the soap opera for the up and comers, the next generation?
Well, I, if everyone understood, if young people understood, and I'm saying teenage, people who may not know exactly what they want to do, but if they recognize that learning, getting to know people, right, um, and having experiences, whether good or bad, shots on goal. I'm a big sports guy, but putting
Yeah.
shots on goal. By the way, in sports, sometimes you're 50% a failure and 50% is success. But if you're 51% of success, that's what Roger Federer said. I'm an old tennis guy. He said that's when you could become the greatest ever.
Mhm.
You just got to be 51%. That
Yeah.
means 49% you failed.
Yeah.
That's the same thing in the job. And finding your niche, finding your passion. I've told both my we by the way, being a physician, again, luckiest guy in the world. I went through all the cancer treatment, couldn't naturally have children. We end up going and with great science and in vitro boy girl twins. Who's better than my wife and I? I mean, how great. But that adversity made us appreciate what we had, right? And the point of this is that you just keep going. You keep having that shot on goal. You keep striving to learn more, and you'll find you got to be intellectually curious. You got to be a lifelong learner, and then you just got to follow your passion, whatever that is. And it doesn't, I sometimes feel bad for people. By the way, and I'll honestly say this to young people. What is our scorecard as we grow up? You want position, you want power, you want to make a lot of money. But most of us who go through this, a lot of it, it's like, is that enough? Is that enough? Does that really inspire me? Does that really get me up every morning? I can tell you now, even though, and I'm an older guy, I'm more inspired now than ever, ever. I can't wait to wake up. There's more to do. There's more to learn. There's more to create. There's more to build. There's new people to meet. Just, I think that's what young people need to understand is that it's a building process. It's experiences.
Hmm.
And if you continue to grow and meet people and learn things and try and understand what you want, because not, I mean, like I said, I started out by saying not everybody knows what they want immediately, and that's fine.
Hmm.
I've had 4 careers. I can't
Yeah.
keep a job,
Yeah.
for God's sakes. I can't keep a job.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's been a building process. I joke about this, Cameron, with a lot of people. Take a job that's not going to pay you a lot of money, but it's going to give you enormous experience, right? Because that's what's going to be valuable to you.
Hmm.
Mind you, we go to college, we go to medical school, and we pay them to teach us.
Hmm.
So if someone's willing to pay you to teach you about something, to find out about yourself,
It's a
doesn't
pretty
matter how
good
much money,
bargain.
it's a pretty good deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But our mindset when we're younger is, oh, wait a minute, I need to make a lot of money as the priority. When in reality, it should be, well, for me, the priority should be, no, I want to pursue a passion or learn about something. And if they're willing to pay me even at some level, hey, isn't that great? I think it's a mind shift in my mind for some of you. And I will say, from where I was to where people are now, there's a quality versus a quality of life aspect to young people today that I think there's a greater sensitivity to that, which I think is great. And therefore, money maybe isn't as important as really finding your passion and
Mhm.
your purpose and having the blend.
Sure.
So I think people need to sort of analyze it in those terms.
Yeah. I so these are very helpful pieces of advice, I think, particularly for um, the audience of Cutting to the Case. A lot of the people, and I know them personally, are very, very eager, determined young professionals from Harvard and MIT and all these places, and they are locked in. I mean, when I say locked in, they're Rhodes Scholars. They are on the moon.
Yeah.
What they do is they 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 basically what 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 their philosophy is if someone told me when I was 5 years old to follow my dreams, I would have been a ballerina or I would have been a violinist and I maybe would have peaked at my best years and then I would have developed a tremor or I would have developed rheumatoid arthritis or something and I could no longer pursue this. And so I'm pursuing the long game. I'm trying to accumulate power and privilege. And I think the place where this advice, where your advice hits hardest, is right for our audience, where they've almost over optimized for the perfect career, and they need a little bit more of that playful dance, this energy that you bring. And I think I think Pablo Picasso said it best, right? The idea that it, it took me a little bit to become an adult, but it took me a lifetime to try to paint like a child again. And
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
curiosity driven approach to a career is really the special sprinkle that separates the excellent people from the world's leaders.
Well, I would tell you, my father always told me this. My father passed at a younger age.
Oh, I'm
But he
sorry.
always, yeah. But I mean, I mean, he was the best,
Yeah.
and I had an amazing relationship with him. Loved him more than anything. But I would tell you that he always said, "Enjoy yourself because you're always going to work." To your point, you're
Mhm.
always going to work.
Yeah.
You will always work. And I love to work. And I'm a hardworking guy, and I'm a workaholic. I would admit it. I try to quote, believe it or not, Voltaire, the age of reason, the smartest guy. And he always would say something about singing in the lifeboats and how we have to always remember, right, that you can always work, but you can't always necessarily love what you do. And, the perfect intersection is to be highly successful and get all the things you really want and love what you do. Because, as they say, if you love what you do, you're not really working. And I don't work, I just play and I
Mhm.
dance. I dance like my hat here. I that's what I think young people should really just pursue. And you made the right comment. I mean, we grow up in very motivated families, right?
Yeah.
That unless you do this, I either had to be a lawyer or a doctor. Um, and I studied art. I loved art, and I loved architecture, and I went. But at the end
Wow.
of the day, I love that. I mean, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you found another niche, right? You found another passion. And for,
Well, you married them. You brought them
yeah,
together, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I actually did a master's in religious studies and I did my thesis in Buddhist bioethics, and that's how I brought it into medicine. So we're much alike in that respect. But yeah,
Yeah.
please continue. Yeah.
No, I was going to say I'm very friend. I have some dear Sikh friends, and I've learned Chardikala, and I've studied it,
Wow.
and it's spectacular. I'm not of that faith, obviously, but I love learning about all the language, excuse me, all the religions and all the different things. But there's an intersection, as you probably know in your studies, that there's a lot of similarities. And my father taught me the moral code. It didn't matter about the religions; they all have something very similar in mind. And I think that's great. Hey, they're writing. I forgot the name of the book, and I should know it. But there's this great author. There's a couple of books. It's Second Mountain by David Brooks, and there's another book about how do we really try find true happiness. And this goes for young people. You got to have community. You have to have faith. You have to have a passion. All those things. It's really important for I get a little concerned over young people, um, because there's so much going on,
Mhm.
negative stuff in this world today,
Yeah.
in our country as well as elsewhere. And how do you light the fire? How do you inspire them?
Mhm.
There's a gentleman who wrote On Fire, John O'Leary. I don't know if you know his story, but it's his whole message is, what more can I do? What more can I do? I think it's such a beautiful message. There's always more one can do. And you just got to be motivated. You got to try and when you get older, and I bet you as a physician already, even at a young age, there's nothing better than helping people.
Mhm.
And there's givers and takers in this world, and giving is so much better than taking.
Yeah. And in giving, you receive as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
deeply, deeply. So it's great. It's great. And I really, I don't, I hope you get one person to listen to this, but hopefully they'll get motivated and inspired to say, I can do more. I should learn more. I should have shots on goal. I should be a good team player. I should do more than is asked of me. And I should follow my passion,
Yeah.
because that's all you can ask for,
Yeah. And,
right?
and you go in eyes wide open to whatever career you have, and uh, bringing your philosophy in, have a lot of flexibility and that playful energy, and be able to kind of weasel your way through hard times and not be
Yeah.
so rigid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have like 5 jobs yourself, and you're a relatively young guy. So I think you understand what I'm talking about a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my philosophy's generally been, I guess, early in career to when something's moving slowly, you just go into other spaces and you kind of intercalate in there. And then
Right.
as that plug finally releases, you can go back into whatever you were doing. And it maintains a level of efficiency across all the output. So you're no longer like stuck on one thing. And then if that gets stuck, you're done. And I think that's also a very interesting approach is, maintaining volume, but still
Yeah.
focusing on quality too.
Well, and I think you just triggered something I just wanted to share.
Please.
I sometimes get, I wouldn't say criticized. People tease me, which I know is in love, um, in friendship. But they say, "Why are you doing so many things? Why do you? Why?" But the fact is that we're living here, right? And we're able to engage, we're able to think, and we're able to be creative. And there's, as long as you're, when the old joke of, being laser like focused, to your point,
Mhm.
is for some people it's absolutely the right way to go about it, but for others, being able to have a lot of interests and do a lot of different things and get to understand what excites you and what doesn't, and have a passion about creating and creativity and starting something new, whatever it is, there's nothing better. That's living.
Yeah,
It's living to me. And
totally.
I'm,
Totally.
I may be a jack of all trades or David of all trades and master of none. But the fact is that I love, it keeps me inspired. My wife often says, "How do you do all that at the same time? I mean, how do you keep it all straight?" But you know what? Sometimes our minds can do that.
Hmm.
Our We have that ability. Some people, it would be overwhelming to
Hmm.
some people. It's like, what? What are you talking about? But it's what makes the world go round, is everybody has their own way of doing things. But at the end of the day, like I said, we're all just trying to find the right spot, the joy, the happiness, the passion
Yeah.
for what we do, and giving to people, and feeling, um, that great feeling of, like you said, what you get out of it
Yeah. Yeah.
is amazing. It's amazing. It's the greatest feeling in the world.
It really comes out and the energy just comes right back at you. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that act of kindness. It's it's draining to be taken.
Hmm.
It's empowering to be given.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
it's
And
all I got. It's all I got. It's got to be enough.
yeah, and I absolutely do want to be respectful of your time as well. I
No,
appreciate
I'm good.
everything
I
that you've
got
given.
time. If you had any other questions, I'm glad to. But
No,
it's
I very much appreciate it. And I always end the interview with a word of advice, but the entire interview has been words of advice. So
yeah.
I
Okay.
think we've covered our bases there. I appreciate everything that you've done for this nation and for the inspiration of the next generation. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Cameron. Good
Yeah.
luck to you. Good luck in medical. Now, what year are you in?
I'm a fourth year medical student, so
Fourth year. Do
I'm
you
going to
know
be a
your
doctor in
specialty yet?
9 or 10 months.
Do you know?
Maybe psychiatry, internal medicine,
Nice.
in those
Good.
routes. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
You guys are the heroes. So keep it going. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And I'm looking to potentially, someday go into the corporate element of things and leadership
Okay.
and national leadership. So, different things are on my radar as well. So I'm keeping an
Yeah.
open mind as well. So
Good for you. All
yeah,
right.
I
It's been a
appreciate it.
pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I
Take
appreciate it.
care.